Hello, everyone, and welcome to this series of videos where we take a look at how you kind of get up and running gathering data in Refinitive Eikon. In this video, we're going to go back looking at the Excel add-in functionality again, but this time around we'll gather some non-financial data and we'll start maybe doing a little bit of very basic statistical analysis, a kind of statistical analysis actually that wouldn't stand up to too much scrutiny, but at least it'll kind of show you how this kind of how the data and the analysis can maybe interact with one another, and it might form the basis of how you might move it forward for your own particular research project. Again, a couple of riders with this video. First of all, at the moment, if you're trying to follow what I'm doing on your own device, at the moment I am in SETU, so I'm in the SETU computing environment. That may or may not make a difference from the perspective of how you access Refinitive Eikon. I guess it can depend on the kind of device you're using. It can depend on your connectivity. It can depend on what kind of firewall you have in place. There's a lot of kind of variables. But I think for the most part, the package itself is relatively robust and should be usable. So for this particular video, we're going to gather some data. We're going to analyze that data, and we might come to one or two conclusions. But as I say, it probably wouldn't stand up to too much scrutiny. I'll be doing all of this in Excel, so we won't be going near the web version of it. We'll be gathering our data directly into Excel. So I'm going to share my screen. So now I hope you can see my Zoom screen, and I am going to get Excel up and going. And as you can see, I've got the Refinitive Eikon tab already in place. If you don't, go back to an earlier video and you'll see how to get that there. I'm also online and logged in at the moment. If you're not, that button here might say offline. So click on it. It'll open up a separate tab. You'll have to enter your login credentials, the icon.student1 or whatever at wt.e and the password, and then you should be up and going. When you are up and going, it's going to look a little bit like this. As with the last time, the first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get a portfolio together, and we'll get a slightly different portfolio together this time. We'll go into euros. I don't think it matters a huge amount. I'm going to gather up, I'm going to go to the country of exchange. So where are these companies quoted? I'll pick up a whole load of European companies, and I'll also get some North American ones. In particular, I'm going to go to Canada and I'm going to go to the United States of America. Now it's looking like a very big sample, so we're going to have to maybe reduce it down a little bit. So I'm going to reduce it. I'm going to only pick up, I'm going to reduce by size, and I'm only going to pick up those companies that have a market cap of more than 10 billion. I hope that went in correctly. Yes. Now I'm going to let it do its thing there. Now it's going to take a little bit of time for it to gather it up because it's obviously even before I did that, it was spooling through about 15 or 20,000 companies. Hopefully I haven't broken it. But I'll add one more exclusion clause to this. I'm not going to include. I'm going to exclude this time. I'm going to exclude companies. Oh, they're coming up there. You can see them. I've got 1,151 in the sample. I'm going to go into my financials again and I'm going to exclude insurance, collective investments, and investment holding companies. Now, the reason why I exclude insurance is because it does a lot of what insurance companies holds, and collective investment and investment holding companies. They're just holding investments in other companies. Banks actually carry out their own actual activities. So there's a bit of double counting going on. Say, for example, the Vanguard S&P 500 index fund actually holds a whole load of index fund companies. So it's a double counting. So I'm going to get rid of some. It'll reduce down a little bit. Not too many of these, but more than 10 billion cap. And I think we'll be left maybe with a series of companies that might be in and around maybe 1,000 companies. So we should have a large enough sample. I'm just going to let it do its thing here, and then what I will do is I will export it into Excel. So there it is. I think we're at 947. Looks like the final tally. I've now got to put that into Excel. How I do that is I can just hit that little button up here that says insert into the screen. Don't know what's happened there. Let me go back here. Oh, there it is. Magic. So that was the actual That was like the actual spreadsheet I had opened. For some reason, it just got bounced out. So again, you can see, look at that's the code that I effectively wrote but didn't write, but that's the code or how it got converted into code by that screener tool. I think you'd be doing well to write that on your own. And then you've got, and this is what has resulted all this kind of stuff here. Um, what I'm going to do is I am going to maybe catch this and I'm going to bring it into a second sheet and I'm going to, well, apologies, hit the wrong one. I'm going to just paste. I'm going to paste the values and the information. And the reason for that is I've done this before. The reason for that is because the every time you go into Refinitive Eikon and I load up this particular spreadsheet, there's a danger that I'll go in and Refinitive Eikon will do a recalc. And the impact of that recalc will be marginal enough, but all these company market capitalizations will change because that's as of today on the 1st of May, 2024. So all those, they'll all change and that could impact on your sample. And, there could be a lot of kind of messing as a result. So I guess I'm trying to avoid that happening. And I want, as of now, I want the sample to be locked down. Okay, so I have at the moment my sample is every European company, every American and Canadian company with a market capitalization of over 10 billion, and they're not in collective investments or investment holding companies or anything like that. Let's go gather some data. So back into Refinitive Eikon, I want to gather data. This time now I want to build a formula. You can see the very first thing I did oh, you can't see it now, but I moved over to I, so that on the I column, so that I would be separate from the actual data itself. I want to gather, well, let's just look at my data items first. What I want to do this time is I'm looking at all the data items and I want to capture maybe a different kind of data. And you can get a lot of different kind of, like, there's all kinds of data on, descriptive data about companies and so on. You can gather data on their on credit ratings. You can gather data on broker estimates, various kind of financial data, net assets, gross assets, you name it, it's in there. Profit, equity, earnings per share. But what I want to do is I'm trying to see it as I scroll down. Oh, there. I want to get some ESG data. And the ESG data I can gather is quite vast again. There's 983 of these different data types. You can see the very first deforestation controversies comes. So the number of controversies published in the media linked to extensive cattle ranching. You can kind of get the drift here. This is pretty niche. And I don't think would apply to many companies, but it is a live issue. That's not something necessarily that I want to pick up on. What I want to pick, there are governance related ones here, by the way, around kind of, audit board committee, so if you're doing a project that's governance related, there are data points here that you might be able to pick out. What I want to get is I want to get the ESG analytics. And in particular, I want to get the kind of the score that Refinitive apply to various companies from an ESG perspective. So what we're really looking at here is there's a raft of these different agencies that will independently rate companies from an ESG perspective. And they all use a kind of different approach and they have a different mechanism how to do this. Refinitive is one, Sustainalytics is another, Moody's is their version of it. So there's 5 or 6. It's big business at the moment actually doing this kind of activity. So how it works is up to each of these individual rating agencies. They all have their methodologies, which you can, to a greater or lesser extent, interrogate and have a look at. What tends to happen though is you've got what's called an ESG score grade or just an ESG score. Then you've got an ESG combined score grade or an ESG combined score. So the grade basically is when Refinitive apply a rating grade, just like say a bond rating will get a grade of treble A, double A, treble B, double B, B. So there's a kind of a grade score applied. The more A's you have, the better. And if you're down the C's and D's, oh my God, not great. That's not very easy though to analyze. So it's the score that I'm going to look at. So this is the actual number that's applied. So what Refinitive do in the first instance is that they will look at the ESG performance of the company. They will have their methodology, and that methodology will spill out a number. The number is typically between 0 and 100, and it might be 94 or it could be 86. And that 94 will map onto a grade which might say it's double A. The 86 might map onto a grade which might say it's treble B. Again, you have to look at the methodology and how they map these things across. But the score is better from an analytical perspective because it's a numerical, it's a number on a scale from 0 to 100, as opposed to a series of grades which could be in anything. I could look at the score, which is the Refinitive, and you get a definition on you can see it come up here in the screen. It's the overall company score based on the self-reported information in the environment, social, and corporate governance pillars. And you will notice that it's self-reported. Yikes. You could look at the combined, so that's the score. We've got the combined score, which is the Refinitive ESG combined score, is the overall company score based on the reported information. And same again, but it's got an ESG controversies overlay. So there's a score, and then there's a controversy score, which is slightly different. And this controversy score is a measure of the positive or negative reporting in the media around the company in relation to ESG events. I'm going to pick this one for better or for worse. And then once I've decided I'm going to pick this particular combined score as opposed to the components, I then go across to the parameters. And I'm going to pick this parameter for, as you can see there, very quickly, you can get the score as of today, and there's some other various kind of parameters that you can use as well. I'm going to look for a series. I'm going to look for maybe the last 5 financial years. So I'm interested in seeing how has this progressed over a period of 5 years. Again, if I go back, and I picked 5 at random, I could go back 10, but if I was going to go back 10 years, I suspect I'll have a lot of empty data cells because it's only in the past period of time that this has become a lot more rigorous in its reporting and availability of the data. I'm not going to click treat as 0 if not available, because I want to see the non-available data because that might influence my sample. I'm okay there, so I'll just add that in. So now you can see that it's come in. The bit I don't have is I don't have an instrument to tag it against. So so the instrument is the bond, the equity, or whatever it is that I want to get the data on. In this case, it's an equity or a company. And the company, the code for the companies, that was a process of kind of sample selection. I have all the codes over there on the left-hand side. I need to get a cell reference for those. So I need to hit that guy. That pops up this little box, and it'll bring me over to I want to get et.n, but it's A3, and I'm going to remove the anchors or the absolute references so that I can do copying later. I'm going to select that. It'll re-enter into the main formula builder, and you can see A3 is up here. And A3 is popped in here. Now, there are other ways that this can be done. I can possibly go the whole way down in one go. I tend to do it this way. That's just the way I've always done it. Now, next bit is I get to look at the layout then. So how's this going to look? Just takes a little bit of time. So at the moment, Refinitive is putting this together on a kind of with each of the data items in columnar format. I'd probably prefer to see them going across the rows rather than on the columns because I now want to go down a row and down a row and down a row. It depends again which way you set up the data, so whether you want stuff to appear across columns or whatever. So I'm going to transpose this and go like that. Now it's starting to look like this. Now the next thing I want is I'd prefer to see the et.n, which is the company name, down here, as opposed to the combined score. So I'm going to pull the instrument and move it over here. It should pull it across when it wakes up. And I want the Then what else do I want to do? I want to put the financial period relative, I think is what I want to put in on the rows. Hopefully that pops up. Okay, so what I have now is the most recent financial year, back year, and all the way along. Okay, I then want to get rid of the field. I just want the year and the company. That's all I want to see. And I think that's okay. We are good to go. There's no FY -4 because actually it's a null. It's a null point. And now at the point I have everything in and I can insert. In it hops and FY -4. There we are. Nothing there. There's the, if I go into whatever it is, I1, I can see the actual code for what I just did. You know, you could have typed it in. It's actually quite a challenge to get that right from the code itself. So you can see how it's set up. The score was originally, well, three going back FY -3 was 24, and it's gotten worse for this company. Let's go down a bit. I'm trying maybe, will that give me Tesla? There we are. There's Tesla's numbers. You can see what I've just done there. And Tesla has kind of gone from 26 to 34 to 33 to 33 to 35. Okay, so they're kind of holding steady, a bit better than the previous one. Of course, all this is relative, so you just got to see how other companies look. Now, I've gone back into that cell now that has got the Tesla scoring in it. You can see I'm up here in the box up on the top with all the code, because that's where all the action's happening as opposed to the data items themselves. And what I want to do now is I want to remove the row that says FY0, FY1, and so on, because the difficulty is as I copy that down, what's going to happen, I guess, is that it's going to overwrite the next one and the next one and the next one as it comes down. And all I'll get to see at the end of this is a whole load of FY0s and FY -1s. You kind of get the hang of this after a while, so you knew I knew that was going to happen, so I'm able to preempt it. But yeah, so you kind of get a sense of how this works, and this is kind of the finickiness of it, or the kind of I suppose this is the kind of the bit of that experience brings. But you do pick this up quite quickly. I'm going to go back into the build formula. Up it comes. I am then going to wait for it to cycle through everything and bring up what I was looking for. You can see the form is all down here. I'm just going to check my parameters just to make sure. Yes, it's all there. I'm going to go to the layout, and I'm going to see where it says financial period relative. I'm going to catch that and bring it back into the box. Okay. So that's back into the bin of available headers. And now it just has the various scores going back. But I know that they're set up in year order going back in history. Okay. The only thing now is that I can see this is telling me it's going to pop into row 9. And I really want it to pop into row 10. It's done that because it's jumped up a row because of the fact that I gotten rid of a bit of it. So all I have to do here is change the destination cell from J9 to J10. And I'll OK that. And I'll insert that. And hopefully there it is. So you can see it's there already. So that's the Tesla scoring. I'm going to go copy that. I'm going to go up here a bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to backfill the rows that I'm missing above the Tesla. That's all very quick. You can see there's some companies now with much higher scores than Tesla. Whoever, Smurfit Kappa are looking pretty good in paper and packaging. Now, while they're Irish based, I think they're exchange now in the US, if I'm remembering, if I can remember correctly. But anyway, that's all fairly irrelevant. You can see I'm just checking that what I constantly do is I'm doing this and I'm looking at this all the time is I'm making sure the rows line up in the right place, because that's how most of the analysis typically takes place. I'm now going to catch that guy and copy it down. I think I've got in the order of 1,000 in this. 950 or thereabouts is what's in the sample. There it goes, doing its thing, populating up, and you can now see these are all the ESG scores. And I'm going to go home here. Eh, There we go. Now, so we've got some data there. I can see there's a few nulls. We'll have to decide what we're going to do with those in a second. So that will require a small bit of thinking. The next thing I'm going to do though is I think it might be an idea to see, can we gather share price data for the companies? And maybe we might be looking at market cap data as well too. We'll just have to think about what we want to get. But one of the things we might want to, I suppose that might be useful ish, or maybe we could do a piece of analysis on this, is we've got now all this ESG data, and let's have a look. Is there any relationship between what the ESG score was, say, 4 years ago? So can we put ourselves back 4 or 5 years in time, 5 years in time, I should say, uh, so because it's the current year back. So can we go back 5 years? And if we were to maybe identify companies, or could we, maybe not even identify, could we ascertain if there's a relationship now between their ESG score 5 years ago and the subsequent performance of the company in the subsequent 5 years? Okay, so in other words, are those companies, and here's the contention, I guess, are those companies with the highest ESG score back 5 years ago, those companies that has experienced the greatest share price return? Right. So let's have a look and see what we can do. Well, there's two things we need to be able to do that. We need to get the share price at a particular point in time, and then we need to go back and get what it was 5 years ago. And we might go and look again then at more data after that. So let's go back into Refinitive Eikon. I'm going to go back to build a formula. I'm trying to gather more data. My instrument that I'm going to start off with, you will notice that, by the way, that I flicked in, I made sure I was set up right over here somewhere on the right hand side of the screen. I got to go get the instrument. I go over here. I'm going to use this et.n, which is energy something or other. I'm going to get rid of the anchors, and I'm going to select that company. I am then going to look for some a data point for that. I can see the ones that I use quite a bit are up here. So what I'm going to do is if you're looking for price data, have a look in price and volume. It's usually a good starting point, and quite often then it comes up with the most widely used uh, data types, and price close is quite commonly used one. It's the latest available closing price. That's $15.73 is what it is for ETN at the moment. Parameters then, and I am going to put in here. I don't want a series because I only want it for today and 5 years ago. I don't want I don't want to, 250 of these things, or 2,500 of them per company. I just want it on a particular day. I think is probably the easiest thing to do here. So let's go in here. I'm going to select the date, and it's going to be today. Okay. Now, price close today is actually yesterday's price, so that's the one I'm going to be given. And I think we're good to go with that. I'll just check the layout. There's no data item. Oh, yeah. Forgot something there. Data. We'll get rid of that for the moment. I forgot to add that in. So there it is. It's in now. So it should be giving me the price as of now. And now we'll check the layout. Now what we're going to do maybe to save ourselves, let's save ourselves a small bit of mess in here. I'm going to get rid of the field. I'll type that in myself. And I want the destination cell to start on R3, I think. Yeah. I'll select that. Okay, so what oh no, I need that. I'm going to go back and go at that again because I don't want it to be anchored. And I'll explain just now what I did there. So what I did there was I just made sure that there was no header on, because it's just one day's price, and I don't need. I know it's today's price. I'll add in myself. Now I'm going to be able to copy this down without messing around with the layout like I had to do with the previous one. So it'll just copy straight down. I'm going to OK that, and then I think we can insert everything. So it's getting the price for this particular one company when it wakes up and goes about its business. And I will let it do a little bit of thinking about itself there. And it's going to be today's price, which is 1 May 2024. We might try that again. So it's looking like it's running a little bit slow. I don't know if we've got a problem with the formula. I'll just go back into the formula again. I think it should be working reasonably okay. There's, I can see A3. I've got my data item in. I've got my parameters in as I should have. I don't think there's anything unusual in any of that. And I'll insert. Now, possibly it could be because we're not quite at the end of the day yet. So let me just go back a day. 0430. There we go. Didn't like the date. Okay. You live and learn. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just copy this down for every company in my sample. Down we go. And that's going to be paste. In it comes, all the data is populating up. It'll just take a little while for it all to come in. And eventually it should. And there's still quite a few blanks in this. And while it's doing its thing, I think I might move on to the next one. Hopefully I can let it work away. So I'm going to build another formula over here. Hold on, I'm going to cancel out. I'm getting a couple of server invalid responses. That's usually not a great sign. Let me go. That was the original. I'm going to go back in to look at this, the original formula builder. I'll let it pick up the formula. I'll just check my dates. I might just have to go back. What are we, Wednesday? I might have to go back a date just in case there's an issue with let's just go back a date in case there's an issue with time, the not the time, but the time zone, I should say. And I think I can add that in. And I'll insert. Now it seems to have updated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that down and let it go to another round of updates. Yes, now it's worked a bit better. Okay, so I think I have everything there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to here onto U1 and I'm going to do a similar exercise. I'm going to go back to I'll have to change the date. I'm going to go back to the 29th of April 5 years ago. The instrument I'm going to start off with, it's going to be a cell reference. It's going to be this company, Energy Transfer. I'm going to get rid of the anchor points. I'll select it and pop it back in. So you can see now how this is working. I want to use price closed. It was most recently used one. Or I could go down and pick it out from my previous items. The parameters I'm going to apply it's not going to be series. I only want to get one item, but I'm going to select a date and it's going to be 2019. And yeah, the 5th of the 1st, 2019, whether a day or two either way, shouldn't make any bit of a difference. It's 5 years ago. I'll okay that. I then need to check my layout. Hold on. I need to add it in. Add. Check the layout. And I'm going to take out the field, put that into the bin or into the available header block. I want it to be in row 3, so I want to change that to V3. And that's the price back in 2019. And I'll OK that. And I shall insert. Okay, so this is the 29th of April. 29th to the 30th, 29th of April. And then I have got the 1st of May 2019. I'm now going to copy this formula down, and hopefully this comes up relatively quickly. There we go. So the formula is in, it's retrieving away, and it's populating up. There's a couple of nodes now which could exist for a variety of reasons. It could be because the company's new. There's been a merger, acquisition. There's been a bit of a pulling and dragging around at a corporate level. So that's the reason why some of these companies might change around a little bit. I'm just interested to see if I can just find Smurfit Kappa again. Okay, so we do have a full set of data there for Smurfit. Okay, so we've now come a long way in gathering some data. I think the one other thing that I'm going to do, just based on kind of what I have in my head and in mind before I tidy everything up, is I want to capture the market capitalization of the company. I have the market capitalization as it is now, but I want to capture the market capitalization as it was back then as well too. It's another measure of price movement. Let's go and build a formula. So what I'm going to do now is I'm looking to gather what it was the company market cap back in. You can see I have it here. Let me first of all reference an instrument, and I'm going to start off by going again over to here. I'm going to get rid of the data points. I'll select that guy. Or the anchor points is what I should have said there. And so I now have the instrument put in. I am going to look at company market cap. I'm just going to see represents the sum of all relevant issues, level, share types. Okay, so that looks like this item supports default, free float, and outstanding share types. That's exactly what I want. And I got to put my parameters in. And I want this as of a particular day. And I'm going to select the date. And I'll just put in 2019 in here. And I'll OK that. So I've got 2019 0501. Okay. And that looks like it's an ad. Now what I want to do is check the layout. Okay, and the company market cap, I want to get rid of the field. I leave the instrument in, and I want to move that to Z3 so that everything lines up. Select. I'll OK that, and I'll insert it. Now, small bit of an issue here because we're running out of space, but I'll be tidying all that up now momentarily. There we go. It's a big number. What I want to do now is I just want to copy everything down. Whoops. So I can get the market capitalization for every company in my sample. So you can kind of get how this thing works. It's a relatively flexible kind of package. Once you kind of get it up and going, and albeit everything comes in like it should, and looks like it is here. Now the next thing I just want to do is I just want to make sure that I'm going to pop down here a small bit. KBC group, KBC, KBC, and KBC, and then I'll go right down to the end. PSA. Yeah, it's all the same. Yeah. So I'm just doing a very quick check. It's usually good practice just to make sure all the rows are still referencing the same company. Okay, so I want the next piece then. What I'm going to do is I am going to I've got a lot of data here now on the screen. It's all a bit of a mess. I want to tidy it up a little bit, but also I want to remove, you can see that I've done this once already. I want to remove these kind of formulas. They're cluttering the thing up. I've got the data. I don't want a Refinitive Eikon going back and updating the closing price because they're not going to change. And I want just basically the whole thing to maybe look a little bit better. So I'm going to copy that in. I'm going to open up a new tab and I'm going to paste it in. But I just want the values and I want the formats for the moment. Okay. That was because of that particular it didn't like that. I'm going to have to come. Oh, it's still working its way through. There we go. It's done it. It didn't like that little bit there. I'd merged cells, and it just was warning me about it. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a tidy up. I'm going to go back to sheet. I'm in the wrong sheet. Okay. This row I can get rid of. This row I can get rid of. This row I can get rid of. And this row over here I can get rid of. I'm going to tidy up all my data now in a second. Just going to make this column a little bit bigger so I can see the name of the company. I have got the same names here. I'm just going to keep these. It's just, I suppose, kind of slightly good practice. I'm going to maybe eliminate out these particular rows. I'm going to keep those just so I can keep the same name going forward. That's my ESG combined score. I've got my close price. And I've got my close price over here. Now I think I can probably eliminate these two rows here. They're more or less give me the same data. And I've got a close price. And then over here, I've got my market cap on the 1st of May 19. I am going to tidy up all of this. I'm just going to maybe reduce down the maybe it doesn't like it. I'll try it from here. It's just that there's a lot of numbers. And I'll try and just bring them down to 2 decimal places. And I'm going to do something similar to these guys. Just bring them to 2 decimal places. And I'm going to do something similar to this guy. Well, I'm going to, there we go. Right, so there's one very large company there. There's a problem there. I might have just ditched that. The Russian might be in rubles. Okay, so last of the tidy ups. There we go. Okay, so we're nearly there now in terms of tidying up the data. What we really want to do now, though, is there's a lot of nulls, and I need to get rid of those nulls. And this is quite a common practice. Normally, you'd kind of maybe want to document this relatively carefully as to what kind of companies you're getting rid of and why. But I'm going to not do any documentation, and very quickly, I'm going to just delete out a load of companies that don't have a full data set. Sometimes you can manage these, sometimes you can't. It just depends on the statistical analysis that you have in mind. I'll just go down here to the end, and I'm going to. Now, there's a couple of ways I can get rid of all this. I'm just going to use a filter, and I'm going to look at this filter here, and I'm going to deselect everything. And I'm only going to include those companies that have got a null or a blank. And I'm going to get, if you're a null or a blank, I'm going to delete you. So all these as I kind of anticipated, it's the companies in F financial year 4 of this. That's where I think we'll get the main problem. I'm just a lot of nulls here. Um, I'd probably give this, I'm getting rid of a lot here. So in reality, I would normally give this a little bit, we'd have to give this a bit more thought, but just to make the analysis a bit easier, it's all gone now. And I'll just select all. Now I'm still left with a couple. I can see there's a few nulls here based on the price. So what I'm going to do now is that should tidy up a lot for me. I'm now going to go in here. Again, these are the prices, and I'm going to get rid of the null. Well, I want to see the nulls first. So there's a couple of companies there, for some reason, have been given an ESG score, but don't have a price. It could be for, like, I can see Uber is in there. Uber might have been a company that was getting an ESG score without actually being quoted on the market. It was a big organization even before it ended up being quoted. But I'm not going to get into it in too much detail. I'm just going to delete those rows, and I am now going to go back in here and reset all this. Now I'm just looking at there's one other company that's giving me a small bit of a concern. It's that guy there. That looks to be in the many of whatever's above a trillion. I suspect it's because it's a price that's quoted in rubles and not in any normal currencies. So I'll just delete it out. What I would normally do at this stage is I would convert all those into a standard currency, but look at we don't have the time for that here in this. Now let me just do one other thing. I want to do a quick check now to see have I got any nulls left. For some reason, there's a null in here. I'll get rid of that one. I'll find the next one. Oh, I'm not looking the right. Find the next one. I think that's all the nulls gone. So what did that do to my sample of what was 950 companies? Brought me back. So I eliminated about 100 companies there. Okay, so that kind of stuff can happen. And I think I might have to eliminate the Russians. Um, their currency is just, I can see another huge one here from a market cap kind of perspective. So what I'll do is I'll just, rather than doing a conversion into a standard currency, I'm going to go and I'll just eliminate all the Russian companies. And there we go. There can't be too many. There we are, not too many. And we'll select them all again. Okay, here we are. We're now back. Okay, next, I'm going to just remove all these filters. There we go. So that was just a very kind of quick and dirty way of removing all the nulls or the blanks out of your sample. There are other ways of doing this. You can write a little macro or a little VBA code that will just capture all those zeros and just whip them straight out, or all those nulls as well too. Okay, so let's do a small bit of analysis now. We're almost there with this. What I want to do now is I want to look at the share price movement from one period to the next. So let's look at the price. Okay, so there are a couple of ways you can attack this from a methodological perspective. I could look at this I can measure share price movements using natural logs, and I can also measure share price movements using percentages, a standard percentage measure. Most statistical pieces, and when we look at kind of research papers in this space, tend to use natural logs, and there's a variety of reasons for that I don't think we need to get into. Others will use percentages, but not quite this kind of what you would consider to be the standard percentage. Not too many. I'm not going to die in a ditch over that now here today. But I will have to, when I'm looking at the market cap measure, I might have to have a look at that in a slightly different way. Let's just look at the share price movement that has taken place, and we'll just use a normal percentage. So what has been the increase or decrease in share price? Well, in this case, I'm going to put this into a percentage. Um, where's my 215% increase? This guy has gone up by 51%. So there's been so just remember that 100% is a doubling and a 200% is a trebling, because this has gone from that's a 94% increase. That's gone from 94 to 142. That's a 51% uplift. I could have. It wouldn't have mattered if I hadn't taken off that one. I don't think it should. It's all about relative anyway. It's not. Uh, I'm just going to copy this guy down. So I've now got my share price movement, and I have got my ESG score. So you can see, say, for example, here, a company with a relatively low ESG score of 38 had a 215% movement. A company with a relatively much higher, this 89, this is Gibrit, 89, that's a very high ESG score. They've only had a 17% increase. So what we want to do now is check how about those companies with the greatest price movement, were they also those companies that were had the highest on average ESG score? It's a straight, I'm going to just do at this point anyway, I'm just going to do a straight correlation. So I'm just going to do a very simple, maybe I'm kind of running out of space on the screen, but I'm just going to do a very simple correlation between, there's, comes up because I use this one quite a bit. So I wanted to see if the ESG score from 4 years ago is correlated with the ESG score from today. Now, this is not a perfect, I'm not saying that these are perfect stats. I would probably have to do do a little bit of moderation on this. Now what that tells me is that the ESG score is negatively correlated. So effectively, those companies that experienced the greatest price movements were the ones that had the lowest ESG score, and those companies that were higher up on the ESG score tended to be smaller on the price movement. So there's an inverse relationship. Although the amount is quite low, it is, minus 0.2 it does really indicate that there's no real relationship between the two. Now that's kind of a little bit unusual, but I suppose not necessarily unexpected. We could do another piece of analysis, which is why I kind of captured the market cap data. I'm trying to kind of see what are the factors that influence my price movement. And I don't have many factors in my data here at the moment. So what are the factors that influence my price movement from 5 years ago to today? And I want to know, was it the initial ESG scoring that had an influence, or was it the market cap? Or was it the relative movement in ESG? Is the relationship, say, it could be that there has been a relative movement. There's the ESG score, and then there's the movement. There's a starting point, and there's the movement. So this has gone from 38. Sorry, it's gone from 48 divided by 38. So this has gone. There's been for this company, there's been a 24% uplift in their ESG score. Now, the difficulty with using a percentage movement is that companies that start off high, there's a limit to how far you can go. You can only go up to 100, so it's not a great metric. But we'll just put it in just for argument's sake anyway. So we've got a couple of variables here now that I want to use from an analysis perspective. Now I'm going to have to move. I'm only going to do the analysis in using the Excel package. I'm not going to bother bringing all this stuff into a package like SPSS or anything where I would have a lot more functionality from a statistical perspective, at least anyway. So what I am going to do is I am going to do a little bit of moving stuff around just so that I can get the data set up from an Excel perspective to be able to do the analysis. This is nothing now to do. We're outside the realm now of Refinitive Eikon, and we're now in the realm of analysis. Okay, and the kind of analysis that we're doing is we're trying to determine what have been the influencing factors on the price movement. I can see my price movement here, And I now want to know what are the factors that have influenced that price movement. So what I'll do is I'm going to grab a couple of items. I'm going to open up a new tab. There's my codes. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to bring this guy in, up in there, and I'm just going to paste the values. So the price movement over 5 years for these companies has been 215%. One company's gone down 12%. What have been the potential influencing factors? Well, I think one influencing factor, well, where did they start out from an ESG perspective? Because remember, like 5 years ago, we bought the company at a price, it's gone up by 215. When we bought it at that price, the ESG score was 38. Also, possibly an influencing factor has been the trajectory of the company from an ESG perspective. Um, and I appreciate that this particular measure is very shaky because there's an upper and lower bound on this. And also, those companies that are high can only go one way. So I'm good. There's a company that had 89. It's gone down 4%, but it was really good company from an ESG perspective to begin with. So it's not quite a great variable. I'm going to go back. I'm going to capture the market cap as well. So I'm going to bring this in here, and so my market cap is the size of the company. So size can be an influencing factor for a variety of reasons. There's those companies that if you're if you were a $900 million company, as you are back then in May 19, a $900 billion company, it's hard to grow. So, it can be bigger companies are faced with slightly different environments than smaller companies. What I want to do now is I want to do a little piece of analysis. So I'm going to go back over to my data. I have a data analysis add-in tool over here. You may have that. I'm going to do a regression. It pops up. I could do a whole load of other things. I'm going to keep the stats of this relatively, that's just from the last time that I was using this. It's of no significance. Okay, so my Y range in this case, so I'm saying, what are the factors that influence price? Well, this is the Y range. And my X range, what are the variables then? And the reason why I just set it up like this was because all the different variables had to be next to one another on my Excel sheet in columnar format. So I have got, I'm going to have to change this. Apologies, because I've made a small bit of a mistake in the setup. I've ticked that I've got labels. So, and the labels, going to input my Y range. The label is movement, price movement. Okay, so movement. So it takes the very first row as a label. Otherwise, I'm going to go down to my range, and I'm going to go back up here. I've got the very first row is my what you may call it, my labels, and I'm going to OK that. And then it pops into another spreadsheet. Okay, so here are the results. Excel does this amazingly quickly for what it is. And we just need to, if you have a familiarity with regression analysis, so that's I'm going to adjust some of these. That's the size. This is the movement in, yikes. And this is ESG 5 years ago. So what do we get from this? Well, first up, the multiple R squared is the multiple R is 20%, but actually the adjusted R squared is about 4. It's at a push, it's about 4%. So really what that says is that the model is actually not that great, as you'd expect. What that tells me is that, I'm going back to this one, is that the movement in share price is only to a very small extent measured by these three particular variables. Most of the movement in share price is probably down to a whole load of other variables, as opposed to market cap, which is the size or the movement in the ESG rating or the ESG rating when it started. Other bits that is I can pick out from this is that well, there's a negative even when you factor in size, there is a negative relationship between ESG and share price performance. Okay, so and I'm picking that up here from the negative side sign on this variable. So um, as the ESG rating 5 years ago goes up, then the share price increase is not as big. Okay, and I can see that that's actually a significant relationship because the t-stat for that is above 2 or the p-value is lower than 0.05. I'm not going to get into, I'm not going to be, I don't want to do a stats class, but then the next piece is how about, does the movement in ESG matter? So in other words, is the share movement in share price a reflection of the increase or decrease in the ESG performance of the company? And sadly, it's first of all, it's a negative relationship, but actually the t-stat is not significant. So actually what that's saying is that this bit here is saying that in order for the t-stat to be significant, that number there needs to be more than 2, or this guy needs to be lower than 0.05. It's not, as you can see. So effectively then that the movement in ESG is not a factor contributing to the movement in share price. Again, this needs a little bit more analysis and a little bit deeper dive because I've made a whole lot of underlying assumptions and took all kinds of data from various unusual places. The next one then is size. And is size a factor? Well, actually, size, as I measured it, just on the raw price value, is that it's picking up. It's a negative relation, but also it's not significant. Okay, so effectively, what that's saying is that the larger companies, the size of your company does not influence what size the company was 5 years ago, did not influence its subsequent share price. So if the share price could have gone up or gone down or whatever, it was irrelevant as to the size of the company. Um, the piece on this though is that the one thing you will notice that size is in the billions, and then all these variables are kind of quite, every other variable is kind of less than 100. In reality, that these are decimals, these are all less than 100, and size in the billions, that does confound issues a little bit. However, let's do a quick recap on what we've done here because we've done quite a bit. In the first instance, we started out and we gathered our data. We set up our portfolio based on whatever criteria we'd applied. You had to be on a particular exchange in Europe or North America, and you had to be you had to be worth more than 10 billion. The next thing then we did was we gathered some data for that portfolio based on the ESG scoring of that company going back over 5 years. That was another piece on Excel or on Refinitive that we sucked in the data. The next thing we did was we then gathered share price data for those companies. First of all, for 2020, for today, effectively, going back a day or two, and then 2019. And then we gathered some market cap data. I think if I was to look at it, the original sample, I just want to go down and do a small bit of a, for what it's worth. That's about, it looks like that's just there alone, there are 20,000 data points. So that was in relatively short order, we got 20,000 data points. Now, some of them we didn't use, but we could do much more kinds of analysis, admittedly, with this. The next one we did was after that, then once we have all our data, after that, then it's now we get into the realm of data cleaning and data analysis. The data cleaning was around getting rid of all the nulls. Now, again, by getting rid of nulls, you may be getting rid of a certain type of company, maybe a small company or a company that there could be a variety of reasons why we're getting rid of all these nulls. But there's a danger that you might be getting rid of a good chunk of your sample that might be useful from an analysis perspective, or could be biasing your results rather than being useful from an analysis perspective. But we got rid of all our nulls. That led us with a kind of a spreadsheet that looked like this, and we then kind of did a small bit of kind of analysis around, well, what was our share price increase in the interim, and then can we explain why that, what was the factor that led to that share price increase? We saw, by the way, that there was no real relationship. In fact, the relationship was slightly negative when you look at, well, the starting point from perspective of their ESG ratings. So those companies with lower ESG ratings tended to do slightly better from a share price perspective. Those companies that had very high ESG ratings starting off tended to not do quite so well from a share price perspective. There are numerous other ways, by the way, of doing this, and probably a much better way would be to group. I've got 850 companies. I could have put them into 8 portfolios based on their ESG rating and looked at a portfolio level rather than looking at it at a individual company level like I've done here. And most, I suppose, a lot of kind of research in the finance space take that particular kind of approach. And the last bit we did then was we did a little piece on a little bit of a regression to see, well, can we identify what are the variables that might be influencing price movement? One thing that could be influencing price movement is, well, where was their starting point? Then look at the percentage movement in that ESG rating. Were those companies that experienced the greatest uplift in ESG rating in the 5 years, were they the ones that did the best, or was it just purely a size effect? And lo and behold, most of them didn't become weren't shown as being significant. Again, there was two bits to this. There was the data gathering part, and then there was also then the data analysis. The data gathering was done through Refinitive Eikon, and then, well, the analysis was pretty perfunctory. There wasn't a whole lot of sophistication to it, and you'd want to do a lot more. And I wouldn't read into these results in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of holes I could pick in them. Okay, thanks for listening. I'm going to stop there and come back in for the next one.